Hey.
Is your belly even on?
No, it's not, but thank you. Thank you so much. I know. Hey. Thank you, do.
Is your belly even on?
No, it's not, but thank you. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much. I know. Hey. Thank you, do.
Is your belly even on?
No, it's not, but thank you. Oh, that's the YouTube thing. Let me hold on. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much. Why is it repeating like that? I know. Hey. You do.
Is your belly even on?
No, it's not, but thank you. Oh, that's the YouTube thing. Let me hold on. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much. Why is it repeating like that? I know. Hey. I need to turn it off. You do. Is your belly even on? No, it's not, but thank you. Oh, that's the YouTube thing. Let me hold on. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much. Why is it repeating like that? I know. Hey. Let me turn it off. You do. Is your belly even on? No, it's not, but thank you. Oh. There you go. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see who all is here. Multi-panelists. Multi-panelists. All right, welcome. Let me go ahead and start playing some music for us. Get started.
Good afternoon, everybody. What's up, Amber? AB, what's going on, brother?
What's up? What's up? What's up? I gotta clean my desk a little bit. It's we've been rocking and roll over here. Congrats, Will. I heard a little bit of news.
Oh yeah, man.
Street's been talking about you.
I hear him.
My man out here. This is cupping season. This man. All right, cool, Will.
Yeah,
man. With the Mexico trips and stuff.
Yeah, man. Had to make a girl my wifey. It was important.
Yes. I'm happy for you, brother.
Yes, man. Yes. Thank you. Ready to get busy. We definitely got to have a conversation with you too soon, the both of us.
Okay.
Yeah, do some financial advising. For sure.
Money. Let's see.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah, it's cool, right?
All right, Amber.
I love it. I love it. This is super
oh, this is actually. We're gonna start in like 1 or 2 more minutes.
Yeah.
I love it. I like the little background with a little African going on.
Yeah. I was gonna say it. It's dope, right?
Hold up, I'll be right back.
Oh, this is what I was looking for. I'm trying to. All right. A couple of more minutes. Well, literally like 1 more minute, then we're gonna get started. Let me see. What song am I gonna play next?
All right.
Run it, 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 run it. Run me my bag, run me my dough, run me my cash, run me my foes, run me them haters. You know you see me, I'm getting paper, you wanna be me. Run me them hundreds, I'm talking biz, I'm driving biz, me and my friends. 150, 25 in the 10s. We shitting green over here, that kind of spins. We running shit, you run your shit, we in this bitch. All right. Thank you all for joining us for another wonderful Saturday. For those of you guys who are new to this platform, this webinar, my name is Amber Lachey. I am the founder, CEO of Ratchet Assets. I started this platform to help people of color primarily just generate wealth. And so today I was able to get together a great group of people to just share insight based on their experiences in the stock market. And you guys, I'm just so excited because we have definitely a great lineup here for you today. But before we jump into our guests, I definitely want to start off by doing a mindset activity, just to make sure that we're all in the correct mindset, frame of mind and stuff, because when you're making any type of investments, whether it's stocks, real estate, maybe you're investing in yourself so that you can move up or climb the ladder at your job, you want to make sure that you have a positive mental state and that you are thinking from a healthy perspective. And so before we jump into letting our guests take the mic, we're going to go ahead and delve into this quote. All right. So today's quote comes from Duke Ellington. Duke Ellington, one second. Duke Ellington was born in Washington, D.C. and raised in New York City from the mid-1920s onward, and gained a national profile through his orchestra's appearances at the Cotton Club in Harlem. In the 1930s, his orchestra toured in Europe. Although widely considered a pivotal figure in the history of jazz, Ellington embraced the phrase "beyond category" as a liberating principle and referred to his music as a part of the more general category of American music. Ellington was noted for his inventive use of the orchestra or big band and for his eloquence and charisma. His reputation continued to rise after he died, and he was awarded a posthumous Pulitzer Prize Special Award for his music in 1999. Duke Ellington quoted, "Life has two rules. Number one, never quit. And number two, always remember rule number one." All right. So my question to our great people in the audience is, has there ever been a time you quit doing something but regretted making that decision? And number two, what would have been some alternatives to you quitting? So go ahead and take just take 1 minute to think about your response. And then after you have thought about your response, share it in the chat box. And throw some music on. Oh, thank you. The chat is disabled. Let me make sure I enable the chat. There we go. The chat is now able. All right. I'm going to go ahead, if I can have a couple of people from the audience to share their experience. Has there ever been a time where you quit doing something but you regretted making that decision? You can raise your hand and I'll bring you up to speak. Has there ever been a time where you quit doing something and regretted that decision? And before I read what was shared in the chat box, initially the chat box was closed. So if you want to answer in the chat box, you can go ahead and type in. I'm going to pose this question to our panelists, Lawrence, AB, and Will. Has there ever been a time in which you regretted, in which you quit and you regretted doing so? Will?
Oh yeah, I'll start. So yeah, definitely. A couple summers ago, I was working at a summer camp. Summer camps are my jam. I think it's a really great place it's like a hyperbolic time chamber for kids. They can learn so much in 10 days, more than they can learn an entire school year. So I was working at a place and I became really disgruntled with it, even though my goal was to learn how they run that business so I can copy it and create my own. I just became really disgruntled with how certain things went, and I ended up quitting and saying, "Yeah, I'm just out of here." And I think one thing in retrospect that I would have done is I probably would have just said to myself, "Hey, listen, you're here for a reason. You're here to get the intel, all the intel that you can get, and then from there, finish the job, have a good relationship with the person, and then move on the next season instead of just kind of getting emotional about it." So yeah.
AB?
Definitely a good example, Will. I won't talk about a specific one. I'll talk about something that happens to me quite often. I won't say I quit often, but if I do quit something, it's usually because of what I've learned to be is what some people would call like destination syndrome. And so if I get into something, I'll be so focused on like the finish line. I'll be so focused on the end result. And if things aren't going my way or whatever, I won't necessarily quit off the first failure or whatever, but if things are not going how I planned them to, or it's not what my perception of it was, if my idea of it doesn't start to come to pass, then I'll quit because I'm like, this is not what I thought it was. And so that's my 2 cents.
Lawrence? Oh, he might have just left or what have you. All right. Definitely. And so the reason why this quote kind of resonate with me was because the last 2 weeks have been a trying weeks in terms of the market. And I know some people felt very discouraged looking at their portfolio and seeing everything green turn to red, right? And when something like that happens, people tend to panic and just maybe quit, give up, move away, take all their money out, right? I know my husband, he invested in Bitcoin and he was like, "Now I'm taking my money." And I was like, chill, you know what I'm saying? Like, chill, money man, learn more about how the Bitcoin moves and stuff before you decide to take your money out, And so during times like this where you feel flustered or a little bit frustrated, or when things aren't going your way, right? For me, I personally there's been times where I quit too, but just in the sake of time, I'm not going to share my story for the sake of time. But when times like this take place, and when I reflect on the times where I have quit, most times than none, I regret making that decision, right? Usually when I have quit something, I quit out of frustration. I quit because I didn't like how I felt as a result of me not feeling successful. When in actuality, if you are, when you feel unsuccessful or when you feel uncomfortable about something that you're partaking in, you should just, that's an indicator that you should just learn more about it. And so I spoke to Will earlier this week, and I was like, listen, we run these rooms early in the morning, and we hear a lot of our the people in our rooms ask like basic questions about investing in stocks. And some people were frustrated about the returns that they were getting and the loss that they were getting. I was like, you know what? I don't want people to stop and stop investing in the stock market. I want people to feel encouraged. And I bet if they had more knowledge about how to appropriately invest in the fundamentals and the techs in terms of the stock market, then maybe they won't be quick to just turn away from it. And that's why we decided to do a 4-part series in which we're getting straight to the basics in terms of stocks. And I was able to talk to the panelists and get them to chunk every little thing down so that you walk away with something and that you could take this information, apply it, come back next week, learn more, apply it, come back the following week, learn more, and apply it. And so without further ado, we have our guest, Dr. Iyanu. I'm so excited.
Hello.
All right, Dr. Iyanu is an artificial intelligence expert / scientist. I'm going to start by first interviewing him, because I think that I don't think I've ever met an artificial intelligence expert or scientist, or even knew that it was like something real. You know, like I've watched television. I think the closest I came to it was Quantico, the CIA, and them talking about like artificial intelligence. So I wanted to use this opportunity to kind of just gain more insight. And my apologies, Dr. Iyanu, if some of the questions I ask is redundant, because I've been inviting Dr. Iyanu to a couple of things. He just sat on the Black History. He just sat as a guest for my Black History program a couple of days ago. And I'm just like, yo, can you come in this week too? So eventually he's going to ask for compensation, but I'm just going to take advantage while it's free. And so definitely I have a couple of questions to ask you, and I think that our audience will be intrigued. But before I dive into those questions, just briefly tell us a little bit about yourself, and then what you do as an artificial intelligence scientist.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Amber. Really appreciate it. My name is Iyanu, and basically I'm a machine learning and artificial intelligence expert. And so basically what we do is we try to find like hidden patterns that exist in data, and patterns that can tell us about the future, patterns that can tell us about what's going on right now. And we apply these machine learning techniques, to be able to identify solutions to those problems so that we can, continue to improve people's lives, make better decisions, and things like that. So let's take, for example, your health, right? So in the health space, you'd say some people would argue that it's about the food that you eat, while others will argue that it's about your environment, while others may argue that it's about your genes, while others may argue that it's about a process or bioprocess or chemical process or whatnot. So what we try to do is we try to take all of these different aspects and we say, what's going to be the best way or best approach to addressing this problem, given that all of these different pieces play a huge part in it. If you look at it individually, it's pretty easy. But if you start looking at it collectively, it becomes, an NP-hard problem. And so we use machine learning techniques, mathematical models, to improve, the decision-making process, because now we have lots and lots of data. The same thing applies to the stock market, right? In the stock market, we have people saying Tesla is going to be the next big thing, and invest in Tesla. But many people don't understand that Tesla is not a car company. They don't only do cars, essentially. They have an insurance business. They have a whole ton of things. And so when you start to use AI to analyze this stuff, rather than me having to dig into loads and loads of news on Google or search or read, I have an AI system that just tells me and gives me those answers. And so it makes my life easy. It makes it less stressful for me from a research standpoint because my AI systems kind of help me do the research.
That was going to be my next question. Like, what role does AI play in the stock market? Because I know that there's some people that's in the stock market that have an advantage because they have access to programs. I know I took one program with I think it was called iExcel or one of those little MLM, ABA abbreviated JKB, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. One of those 3-letter companies that took $175 from me each month to learn how to invest. And they basically had these programs that basically gave you the entry points into the stock market and as well as the Forex exchange. Mm-hmm. And so my question is, like, what percentage of people that invest in the stocks actually use artificial intelligence to help them make informed decisions? And what influence does artificial intelligence have in terms of the stock market? And do people who don't have those systems have a chance? Like, do you recommend that we, purchase one of these programs that uses artificial intelligence to make, to determine the entry into the market or to determine when to pull out?
So that's a very great question. And right now we are beginning to see a growing interest in using AI in the markets. We have a couple of people that are actually building these, robotic apps that help you to find what the next move is going to look like. However, and also to backpedal a little bit, if you look at the market is in cycles, right? It's an up and down movement. It's either it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. And anything that goes up and down like that, we can pretty much time it, right? We can time its movement. So for example, markets went down this week, right? But if you go back to history, last year, same February timeframe, there was a market, pullback as well. And guess what? It impacted the tech stocks last year. We see a repetition of that same trend this year. So if you were using a tool to try to understand it, you would see that, like, wow, there's some similarities between what happened last year and what's happening this year. And then you can keep your money out of the market, right? Or you could choose to put your money into the market. But here's the problem for just regular users. For regular users, if you want to use any AI system, before you start using the AI system, it's important and critical to really understand how the market operates and how the market works. Then you need to understand what the AI system is doing, so that it's easier for you to better understand what it is that you're getting, because then if the AI system fails and you lose all your money, then that's a problem. But outside of losing all your money, you can also have risk management, techniques where you set your stop loss where it's necessary so that you don't end up being in such problems. But other than that, like, yes, there's a growing interest in using AI systems. But the difficulty I have with, just people jumping on it is that, like, you have to understand what the AI system is doing, because if it stops doing what you expect it to do, then you're going to blame your software developer, rather than you say, okay, you know what, like, the market could actually tank. So,
and then 2 more questions before we move on to your presentation. What common mistakes do you see people make when using AI to help make informed decisions about the stock market?
So one of it is what I just spoke about, which is lack of knowledge on the system. So I see a lot of people advertising their AI system on Clubhouse everywhere.
Yes, they do.
And I use these platforms as well. But guess what? Like, you cannot predict what could possibly happen 100%. So, like, there's no AI system in this world that could predict what would happen by 100%. And if there's no AI system that will predict what will happen by 100%, you have to also keep your eye on it, so that, because the probability is high that you either lose everything or you gain, right? So the probabilities of losses have to be way less than your probabilities of gain if you really want to see a lot of success. And so it's really, really critical that, you know, rather than jumping in, like understand the market, understand like the SPY, the VIX, the, you know, the things that are drivers, the things that drive price movement in the market. And then you take that and use that and apply it to your trading, you know, and if you do choose this route, you know that you definitely have an understanding of what you're going into.
Thank you. Last question. All right. I don't know if you can share this, but I'm just going to ask anyway, because I'm sure that people are wondering, what AI software would you recommend someone subscribing to, purchasing in terms of jumping into the stock market, instead of using it as a supplement to help them make decisions?
Yeah.
When jumping into the stock market.
Yeah. So a lot of the tools that people already use are either powered by AI, right? So for example, SimpleWall.st is in some way powered by an AI system. So SimpleWall.st, it helps you to do fundamental analysis. And basically it summarizes the income statement report in a very graphical manner. So basically it does all the comparisons and all that good stuff. And so SimpleWall is a very good one.
SimpleWall, and what is it called?
SimpleWall.st.
I'm just asking this for the, I'm just asking this question for our attendees.
Yeah, SimpleWall.st.
WALL?
Yeah, .st.
I think I said it right, but if not, you can just put it in the chat box
Yeah, let
yourself.
me put it in the chat. Yeah, let me put it right in the chat.
But you remember, if you want to use some of this AI stuff, please make sure that you continue to learn the fundamentals of stocks. So that's just like a thank you.
You know, so SimpleWall is one. You know, Finviz is another.
Yes,
yeah, it's another. You know, like it's not really, Finviz is not really an AI system, but it also helps you to make intelligent decisions as it pertains to the market, because it gives you all those indicators that can help you answer a question. So take, for example, when I'm in the stock market, I'm asking a question, right? I'm typically asking either a question, you know, all questions, you know, to establish a certain thesis about the stock. So for example, say I wanted to go into Tesla, right? Like, okay, like Samir will always say, what are the 5 reasons why I've decided to go into Tesla? As a matter of fact, I might not even do 5 reasons. I might say, you know, I might put it into one sentence. You know, I'll put all my 5 reasons into one sentence, right? You know, this is the reason why I'm going into this company, right? You know, and basically whatever that value is what I keep looking at when downtime comes and I choose to either buy on the dip, especially when I'm doing the stocks, right? You know, so I'm looking at, okay, you know what question, you know, can I answer about Tesla? So for example, you know, is Tesla the best car company, right? That's a very broad question, right? But that question drives me to start asking more questions, right? So, you know, then I start taking it step by step, and I start taking it step by step. Well, the advantage I have is I have a system where I can type in these questions and it gives me the answer, because I have an AI-powered system at home. Well, what you might have to do is you might have to go on Google and do some research and say, you know, okay, like, okay, is it the best, is Tesla the best car company? Then you say, what's the comparative analysis? What compares Tesla, you know, comparing Tesla to other cars, what's the comparative analysis? What's it looking like? You know, and then you start seeing the difference between Tesla and other car companies. Then you start asking yourself, oh, okay, you know, but then all of that always piggyback to my initial question, right? You know, and then from there I have a statement, and that statement is what I use to validate my entry. Like, okay, I see this is solid. I see this has strong potential. I see nothing has changed in this. So I'm just going to keep piling things up.
Thank you, Dr. Iyanu. So now I'm going to go to your presentation. So I asked Dr. Iyanu to share just one to make like one statement to provide like 3 supporting evidence to go with that statement. So he wanted to talk about stock fundamentals, and I'm going to just have Dr. Ianu to delve a little bit deeper into the 3 strategies that you can use to when investing into stocks.
Thank you so much. So basically, like I know that we have the technical analysis and and we have the fundamental analysis and piece in the stock market, but I chose to focus more on the stock fundamentals because, see, many times we're looking for the quick money. That's why we focus on the technicals, right? We want to do those quick plays. We want to get in quickly, and they are good for accumulating cash. So we want to do that also, so we have a variety of reasons why people use the technicals, and I do use technicals as well, and stuff like that. We could talk about technicals another time, and stuff like that. But I wanted to focus more on stock fundamentals because I think that that's the best way that even if you are in the market today, you can start trading, right? You don't have to wait for anyone, from the fundamentals standpoint to begin trading by Monday, right? Why? Because basically you start asking yourself some really basic questions. From those basic questions, you're able to start pulling out, relevant stocks in that specific area. And then you're able to drill down and try to understand what they do, how they operate, X, Y, and Z. And so basically, I know that this is a big problem to many. You wake up in the morning and you're like, I want to get into the stock market, right? Well, the next question is, what stock do I go into? What do I trade? How do I find them? How do I find those good plays, right? And basically, Warren Buffett always says you buy low and you sell high, right? So you're looking for those cheap companies, right? So let's establish that fact first before we start looking at like the 3 different areas that I am pointing out here. So we're looking for companies that are cheap. So for example, I just spoke about Tesla, right? I feel like Tesla is over-evaluated, like really, really high right now. In my opinion, personal opinion, okay? Yeah, Amber's looking like, yeah, and why? I mean, look at the balance sheet. Look at the company. Look at how the company is doing, health-wise, right? There are probably other options out there, right? But again, I'm not going to go into why it is and why it's not, because I have my own thesis around it. So, again, this is not educational. This is just for educational purposes only. It's just my own personal opinion. Okay. But I think it's just overvalued right now. Right. Look at what other, comparative car companies are doing. Right. Look at what, look at the company's balance sheet. Go on, what's it called? The SEC, I believe it's sec.gov. And check out their, their balance sheets. Check what they're spending their money on, right? Like how many of us on this call today, right, will allow someone to take you to Mars, right, on a spaceship or a space plane or whatever you call it, right? Fly you in the air. You stay suspended in the system, right? You have to almost swim in the air because there's no gravity, there's all this gravitational pull that happens on Earth, and some of that doesn't happen in that specific planet, right? And eat that way and survive for X amount of days. How many of us are going to do that? Who is ready to actually go on a plane and fly to Mars today, right? So we're investing in these, companies, and we're saying, hey, we're going to take, nice trips to Mars. But in reality, if you're putting that plane today, how many of us will fly it? Just, check, just checking. Sorry, you're mute. I can't hear you, Amber.
So I probably don't have, my bags probably don't run as deep as Elon. But if I was given an opportunity to fly into space, I'm on it. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
If I was given the opportunity to fly into space, I'm jumping on that spaceship, bro. But I think that you made a valid point in terms of just the access, right?
Yeah.
Like access to the rocket ships and so forth. And when you look at the bigger picture,
Yeah.
you know, when you look at the bigger picture, what percentage of people who keep the economy running, right, will be able to partake in flying, you know, into space?
Exactly. You know, like, would it be 10 people, 15 people? How much are they going to pay, you know, to go in space just to have, you know, pleasure? How are they going to eat? Like, what restaurants are you going to be visiting? Like, you know, what houses are you going to be living in? You're going to technically be living inside of, you know, that little thing all through the period of time while you're on there. And so it's really scary, you know, for me personally. And I know they'll like probably be maybe 30% or 40% of the population that'll be like, hey, no, you know. And the population that probably can because they can afford it, that's also going to be like a question of, are they interested in going or are they not, you know? And so, you know, like you have plane crashes and all that, you know, crazy stuff, like the fear of like getting lost in space or being a part of the experiment, you know? So some of these innovations, we're actually not going to see them really launch really big in our lifetime. Maybe, you know, 100 years after now, that will be the norm. But right now, while I'm still living, you know, I think it's still a lot of research, a lot of way to, you know, so much to go in this specific space. So I bring that, you know, up because then we start asking like, okay, how do we choose, right? One way you could choose is you choose based on your personality. So, for example, I just told you, you know, like I'm scared, like Amber would go, but I'm not, you know, I'm not going. So, you know, my personality plays a huge role in the stock that I trade. I'm an AI, you know, artificial intelligence person. So I'm typically looking for companies that are doing anything relating to AI and artificial intelligence. And so if you want to find those companies very easily, you know, all you just need to do is, you know, go online and just type, you know, AI companies in the stock market, right? You know, something as simple as that. And start looking at each of them. What do they do? And here's the thing, you know, I was talking to someone about this the other day. Many times we want to jump into this space, right? But we are not really willing, right, to really do the research to help us to get into, you know, to actually do those plays, right? You know, so we want to get on the next big thing, you know, want to, you know, hear what, you know, hear the tickers and all that good stuff. But we're not willing to do the due diligence to really understand, like, you know, how they're doing, right? So the first thing is you choose based on your personality. What's your personality type? You know, are you into fashion? You know, then look at companies that are probably doing fashion and AI, right? You know, fashion and AI, you know, and start digging into what they're doing, what the next phase is going to look like, how many people are actually buying their products, right? How much are they making in sales every year? Those kind of stuff, right? You know, so personality is number one, right? Two is you choose based on, you know, your risk level, right? You know, your risk level. What's your risk level, right? You know, what risk are you willing to, you know, to take, you know, in the process, right? Like I use a, you know, like you don't want to jump into, like, for example, I wouldn't jump into, what do you call it? Tesla, you know, because I feel it's too risky for me to jump in. Whereas you might feel, you know, wow, Tesla is really good. I have the money, I can jump in, you know, why not? You know, it's a sentiment play for me. I'm just going to do it. Does that make sense? You know? So also you start with one, right? When you find that small one, $2, $3 worth of stock, just go into it and jump into it and see what happens, right? See what happens. And when you see what happens, you never know, you know, it might just be like a good way of practicing what happens in the stock market. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yanu.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. So you all, I think that, wait, hold on, wait, I gotta drop. How could I forget, right? How could I forget? Oh, let me just turn it. There we go. I got to drop the sound effects from my brother, Dr. Iyanu. Definitely. Thank you so much for dropping those gems. I don't know. Are you still on the are you still speaking on Tiffany's platform this morning?
Yes, I was on AI and stuff.
I want to learn more about AI. That's cool. So thank you so much. Feel free to hang out. I think if you're going to hang out, I'm sure that the audience will have questions for you at the end, but it's up to you. Thank you so much for joining our platform, dropping those gems. And next, we're going to turn the mic over to my boy, AB.
Hello. Hi, everyone. First, giving honor to God. Thank you guys for all being here. And second to Amber for giving me the opportunity to speak here. Also, Dr. Iyanu, I know it doesn't look like it from perception, but my father is Igbo. My father is from Nigeria.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's my first two. Amadou Bello is my first two names. That's what it stands for. But today I'm going to be talking about what balance sheets are on the personal side, and that's going to be a segue into our next person, who is Will. He'll talk about balance sheets as it relates to how to pick stocks and things of that nature. So without further ado, I guess let's just dive right into it. Have you ever looked at your account and wondered what happened to all your money? You know, go into the chat box and tell me about a time where, you know, maybe you had way too many DoorDash deliveries, or, you know, you just looked and you were like, dang, it's not what I thought. This is not where the money resides. So tell me about a time where that may have happened to you.
If I can just answer this question, AB, this used to happen. This used to happen way too often for me back in the day, man. Like, you know, you get paid on that Friday, you know, you get the happy hour call that Friday, then you get the Saturday turn up on Saturday, and then you got to hit the Sunday brunch with the homies, right? It's like necessary. It's necessary. You got to do it. So I definitely get it. Good question.
It definitely happens to a lot of people, and you know, there's an old saying, you know, more money, more problems. It's more money and more responsibility in terms of managing it. You know, a lot of that, you know, for whom much is given, much is required. And so we'll go to the next slide. Basically, what the reason why I asked that question is, even if you are just, you know, a regular person, you just 9 to 5, and you've got, you know, stuff going on, you need what's called a balance sheet, right? A balance sheet is basically a snapshot of your wealth at a specific period of times. And in essence, it shows your assets and your liabilities. So assets minus your liabilities equal your net worth. But one thing that I want to hit on very specifically is that it says in a specific period of time. So a balance sheet doesn't show your flow. It doesn't show your up or down. It doesn't show how you got to that specific period of time. It just says, where are you at that point? Whenever you're kind of going through it, you say, okay, this is what I have. And in order for you to figure out where you want to go, you have to know what you have in order to get there, right? So that's essentially what a balance sheet is. Those assets and liabilities can be put into what's called short-term and long-term. To define them really isn't necessary. The main thing is, some things are up for interpretation, and that's really where a financial advisor comes into play. Because, for example, for some people, a car loan is a long-term liability, meaning it's over 3 years or whatever. But for me, a car loan is a short-term liability. I don't like having to pay car notes. It's just something about, it's my personal thing. That's why you get a financial advisor who can cater your balance sheet to say, okay, it's important for me to pay off this as quickly as possible. So let's go through a couple of types of assets. So liquid assets are basically your checking account. Whatever's in your checking account right now is what you can use. Your checking and your savings, excuse me. And that's what that's essentially what you have to play with at this point. Now, some assets are taxable assets. Those are your stocks. Yes, we talked about this last week, where I talked about what's the difference between capital gains stocks or capital gains tax and income tax. And we talked about different things like when you have a brokerage account and other assets, they are taxable. Tax qualified assets are things that bring your tax liability down, right? That's Roth IRA, 401k, health savings accounts, and traditional IRAs. All of these different kinds of assets, like I said, they make up what's called your overall portfolio. And your overall portfolio, it's shown very clearly on this. This right here is called a balance sheet. And so, like I said, you're going to do total assets minus liabilities. And again, we're going to do long-term and short-term. Now, the only thing about this example that they didn't have was an example of a short-term liability that most of you might have, which might be credit card debt. And so if you have basically anything that is causing you very high interest to have and isn't really making you any more money, that is a short-term liability. That's something that you want to get rid of very, very quickly, or as quickly as possible. And it's not to say that you can't invest while you're doing it. It just means that needs to be a priority for you. Because if you're investing and let's say your stocks are producing you 10% return on investment, but you're paying 15% on a credit card, you're still losing, right? You're still in the hole at that point. Now, something that is long-term that a lot of people don't consider long-term is things like student loans. Those things, we're waiting on my boy Biden. Hopefully he come through, but as of right now, I'm just kind of like, maybe. And all of those things go into establishing what's called your net worth. Now, one thing that I do want to kind of segue into is when you have a balance sheet and you figure out where you are at that specific point in time, the reason why I like to bring up this assets versus liabilities is there's a little bit of a, it's more, I guess you would say, philosophical. I didn't do any research. It's just kind of how I think. I think of assets as money that's for the future. And I think of liabilities as money that you've already spent, right? Money that you've already said, okay, this is what this money is reserved for, or this is money that I've already done. So let's say your liabilities exceed your assets, meaning you would have a negative net worth. That means you're paying for yesterday. So how can you plan for tomorrow? Okay. Whenever you're looking at how these things work, the main thing is, like I said, it's only a snapshot in time. So you use what's called a cash flow statement. Can you switch to the next slide? So before we go into a business balance sheet, which is what Will is going to do, another part of a balance sheet itself is basically understanding that, like I said, you're going to need a cash flow statement as well. What that really does is, think of it, I'm sure some of you have probably done it before, and maybe we can do it in the chat box a little bit. But have you ever said, okay, this is how much I make for my job. This is how much my electricity bill is. This is how much my auto loan is. This is how much my student loan payments are, whatever, and then subtract it out, right? That's basically your money that you have to play. Like that's basically, and one of those expenses should be savings. That should be included in your cash flow statement, because you need to know where your money is going to know where it's going to go in the future.
And I
Go ahead.
wanted to add to that, if you don't mind, when you mentioned cash flow statements, right? I thought about, like, before the pandemic took place, my husband and I actually did a cash flow statement, because just like other people, I was noticing how I didn't have like a lot of money left after I paid my bills and after I made my investments and so forth. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing about doing a cash flow statement is that you're able to exactly pinpoint those expenses that you have that's not necessary, right?
Yes.
I saw that I was like spending hundreds of dollars on subscriptions. Like I had every subscription in the book. Like I had a $50 subscription, $15, $20. A lot of my money was going towards subscriptions. I also saw that I was paying a lot of money in interest on my car note, and it wasn't that many more car note payments that I had to make. I saw that I was spending a lot of money on my credit card, spending money on my credit card on unnecessary things, and then having to pay like $800, $700 a month or what have you. And so I think it's really cool because I asked, I was like, AB, what are you going to talk about this week? And he was like, a personal sheet. And I was like, why do we have to do it? And he was like, we was literally talking about it, but I'm like, oh, snaps, we did do that. Like my husband made us do that. And as a result, I was able to reduce my expenses. I paid my car off, paid down on my credit card. It's just a visual that allows you to see directly what's impacting your expenses. So thank you so much for sharing that, AB.
Will, would you, or any of the other panelists, would you like to add anything?
I mean, just really the same thing Amber said. Like once I started actually putting it down in a spreadsheet and tracking it and seeing where my money was going, it was a game changer. It's like, hey, you can't do this Sunday brunch every Sunday. You can't go crazy every Saturday because that's exactly where your money's going. It's going into a pit. So it really makes you to sit back and really think about it. So thank you for it.
Money and net worth is essentially a reflection of time. And like I said, if you're paying for yesterday, you can't effectively plan for tomorrow. A financial advisor is going to look at what's going on and actually come up with like a equation. We have AI and stuff like that too that we use in different programs to basically say it's irrelevant if you're having, everybody says, oh, I have passive income. Well, if you have passive income and you're still paying for the past, it's not doing anything for you at that point. You still need to figure out, okay, what is taking away from my growth in the future and everything like that. And companies use balance sheets as well. That's true. But I'm not saying you have to fluently understand a balance sheet. I'm saying if you can't manage your own personal balance sheets and things like that, once we start talking about what a company does, it becomes much more complex. It becomes much more difficult because these companies have way more expenses than you do. They have employees, they have overhead for their office, they have all these different things, and all of that goes into their profitability. Profitability in itself basically means, is your share price going to go up? Are you going to make more money for me? And if so, how are you managing your money? And so it's like, whenever we look at these companies and everything, especially on earnings reports, I scrutinize, and I always feel like the loud one on these calls, and they're like, who is this dude who only has 100 and something shares? No, I'm here to learn. So I'm going to ask questions at the shareholders meeting, even though all of you have thousands of shares. I don't care. I want to know, what are you doing with my money? And so, because eventually I may have thousands of those shares. So whenever you're talking about like how you want to expand and everything like that, this is another thing that I talked about with Amber last night. We have a lot of things going on. Everybody, we have school, we have kids, we have jobs, we have all these things, and it's difficult to think about over and over and over again. It's like having open tabs in your brain. That you need to look at your bank statement for your credit card, but it's a lot easier to just kind of ignore that because what's going to be there when you get there, right? All that's really doing is like, for me, that would be like, okay, so my trash can has a lid on it, right? And you gotta step on it in order for the lid to pop up. If I don't take out my trash, eventually it's just going to keep stinking. Even though I can't see it, even though I'm not looking at it, it's still there, right? And it's going to eventually get to a point where it's so loud, I don't have any choice but to address it. And at that point, it's probably going to be really, really rancid. Look at your financial portfolio like that. That's all I have. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I love that analogy. Let
me tell you.
That last one was
Listen, Will, you and AB are getting like the Pulitzer, whatever the award that is, for the best analogies, bro. Y'all be coming through with these analogies.
I like that one. Smells so bad, you gotta take it out. You start getting mites, roaches. You don't want any roaches in your bank account.
Exactly. You want roaches in your bank account? Come on now.
That is so high. I have to. It reminded me of this
Oh,
quote that I ran across. Hopefully I'm gonna look for it and share it later. Guys, I gotta find it. I have to find this quote I ran across yesterday. I'm gonna look for it and share it later. But that was a dope analogy that you used. AB, thank you for always coming to the platform and dropping jewels. If people want to learn more about their finances, where can they find you? Can you drop your information in the chat box?
Yeah, I can do that.
Right.
Definitely. I hate to be a stickler about this, but we are in tax season and my office is very busy right now. So I'm happy to schedule time with you guys as much as I can. But please, like, if you want me to do a one-on-one, you please book the appointments, because we're overbooking and we're double booking, and I forget I'm still human. So that's the thing. I'm gonna drop the website right now. You can go in and just kind of check it out. Amber designed it, so that's a thing. And this is my email. If you have any just questions that you want to ask me directly, and the Instagram as well.
Thank you, AB. And I just want to remind you all, what I'm saying, that AB is a certified financial advisor. So when Will gets on, he has to use that disclaimer. But just for now, for the first half, we don't have to use that disclaimer. AB is a certified financial advisor and stuff. So go ahead and check him out. Reach out to him. Be mindful of his time, though, because he is busy. Even now, it's really hard for us to connect because both of us have a busy schedule. But he's more than happy to share and drop some more insight for you if you're looking to build your financial future. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my boy, Will. Welcome back. Also, congratulations. But congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Love it. Thank you.
What am I congratulating you for?
I recently got engaged last week.
Yeah.
Went to Mexico and I got engaged and I made an honest woman.
Congrats.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Yes. So at this time, Will is taken. Well, he's been taken, but he's officially taken, ladies. Sorry.
Got snatched up.
My man cashed out. He is off the market.
I'm out.
He's been off the market,
I need my tab.
You and his fiance is a wonderful woman. I want to give her a shout out as well. She's an entrepreneur and she started her own vegan company, right? So if you want to throw her information into the chat box,
I definitely will. At Charismatic Vegan, she does vegan meal prep in New York City. It's slamming.
They get into the bag together.
Love her.
I'm so excited for you, and I think it's admirable for. I love when Black men step up and commit to their significant others. So you have so much respect for me. All right, and then something else happened too a couple of days ago. He just turned up this was his week. February sucked for me, but it was a great week for him. A couple of days
my
ago.
birthday. My birthday.
Yeah, birthday.
I'm like, wait, what? Yeah, 2 days ago.
That's how you old.
Right.
He was like, wait, what? What you talking about?
Another one of those?
Cake?
Right.
Go ahead and wish Will a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Will.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Most times, people usually come in. I don't know if everybody's on their phone. I don't know, but if you guys could take time out to go ahead and show some love to Will and tell him happy birthday. I don't know if there's something going on with the chat box though.
That's all good.
So usually,
thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it anyway.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Thank you so much for joining us. We're glad to have you back. Definitely missed you, but Lawrence held it down.
Yes, Lawrence. I heard good things, brother.
And we'll get to Lawrence after your presentation. So I'm go ahead and turn it over to you.
Excellent. I think you have to make me the host.
Okay. Stop here.
One thing I was really happy that AB brought up was the idea of the personal balance sheet. Because whenever I talk about balance sheets for companies, I think it's always great to just think about personal balance sheets first and then apply them to companies, right? Do you want to invest in a company, AKA have a friend that has a lot of debt, right? Do you want to, or do you want to be around a friend of yours? I was looking up the Bumble IPO, or do you want to be around people or around friends or around stocks that have a lot of cash flow, right? Or that have a lot of cash on them, right? So thinking about personal balance sheets and business balance sheets as one is super effective. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Stock Saturdays, disclaimer. Here's the disclaimer. Content is intended to be used and must be used for information, education, and entertainment purposes only. It's very important to do your own research and analysis and making your own investment decisions based on your own personal circumstances. I also want to double shout out Dr. Ayanu, especially when he talked about investing based on your own personality, right? He is investing in artificial intelligence. He doesn't really like the future companies, the big flyers. He's looking for something a little more stable. I personally, my style is to look for the diamond in the rough, which is why I'm a big Macy's fan, right? What's going on? What is the market severely discounting that I think actually has a lot of value? That's my style personally. Right. So first things first, for those of y'all that don't know me, my name is William Holmes. I'm the founder of a company called Project Grow. Here's our impact by the numbers. Essentially what we do is we get kids and families invested in the stock market and really have them thinking about creating generational wealth. So probably one of the proudest things that I want to showcase is that we have we opened up 65 Berkshire Kid accounts for Minos so far. Here are some of my kids in our summer camp that we have and some of my after school programs. But I'm really passionate about starting them young, right? When they're 10, 11, 12, these kids are smart and they can actually open up brokerage accounts and they can make intelligent decisions based on their research, right? So super important. It's a little more about me. Now, so first things first, we're going to do something called Under the Hood, where this is part one of how to analyze company financials to make or to find investment opportunities. All right. So first things first, I do want to talk about something I found today while I was finishing up my presentation. It was the Ariel Schwab Black Investor Survey. So Ariel Investments and Charles Schwab did a joint research study. Ariel Investments, please check them out. It is one of the largest, if not the largest, I hate to use the word minority, but that's the word they use, but Black-owned financial management firms in the country. Okay, it was started by a guy named John Rogers. And now I think Melody Hobson is the CEO. Definitely check her out. So in a nutshell, we're going to go over some of these numbers, but what this shows is that as of December 2020, okay, so what they did with the survey is they took 1,000 white people, white Americans, 1,000 Black Americans. Out of those 1,000 Black Americans, 55% of them said they were investing in the stock market, while 71% of white Americans said they were investing in the stock market. Womp womp. But here is the most exciting news, and Amber and I were geeking about this earlier. If you look here, the closing of this gap among younger investors is driven by new investors. As of today, 3 times as many Black investors as white investors report having invested in the stock market for the first time. 29% of Black investors, 29%, let me move this thing over here. 29% of Black investors under the age of 40 were new to investing in 2020. Compared to 16%. Huge numbers. And that's what's bringing the people that are on today. And that's what's making me so excited. I got kids reaching out to me. Hey, Mr. Holmes, like, how do I invest in here? Hey, Mr. Holmes, what about GameStop? Stay away. All these different things, right? But just the fact that there's a fervor around it. So that's why it's so important to know the right technicals and fundamentals now, as opposed to just following what's going on around you. So go ahead. I don't know if the chat's not working or whatnot. So I don't know if I'm even going to ask this question, but what do you notice about the chat, or what do you notice about these statistics here? Essentially what this is the stock market current investor status by age. So these are out of the 1,000 people, what percentage of them under 40 had invested in the stock market? Okay, and this is the most glaring statistic I see, and one that's got me the most excited. So people over the age of 60, out of the 1,000 people that they studied, 72% of white Americans were invested in the stock market, versus only 46 for if you were 60 and older. But now we're talking about people under 40. We're talking about millennials. Black millennials, I think, for the first time in history, are investing at the same rate, at the same percentage rate as white Americans. Now, if you look at almost every economic statistic in the United States of America, Black and brown people trail behind their white counterparts. We talk about real estate ownership when we talk about around 46% of Black people own a home, as opposed to around 70%. You're talking about stock ownership, way less. And then also you're talking about net worth, where Black people have a net worth that is 10 times less than the typical white American. Okay, so this is very, very, very exciting to see that we're even investing on parity as our counterparts. Second piece, definitely some work that we need to do, right? If you're looking at average income above 100K, white Americans typically save almost double the amount that Black Americans do, but we're working on it. And last but not least, this is another exciting statistic that I want to share with you all. So what this shows is that they had the people that were quizzed for the survey. They were asked a question: did people talk to you about debt while growing up? By every major economic statistic, salary, saving for college, paying debt, avoiding debt, growing up, white Americans spoke more about it with their family. If we talk about it now, conversely though, there is a clear shift. Currently, more Black families are talking about economic sustainability than white families, which is just like, what? I did not know this was a thing. Okay, so you're talking about avoiding debt, 62% versus 52%. Look at budgeting, 61% versus 47%. We're talking about real estate, like building wealth, the stock market. The more Black families, according to this survey, are talking about it than white families. That is such a major catalyst for change. And this like further propels me, and I hope everyone else on this chat to just continue to do what we're doing and just giving away knowledge and helping people become better at investing, because it really makes me happy to see these stats. Okay, so let's jump in, right? So, right, who gives an F about financials, right? Especially when you got my guy Pablo over here, who turned $4,000 into $67,000 in maybe 2 weeks, right? The GameStop craze happened in 2 weeks. So this guy literally netted like a year's salary within a couple days. And I'm sure he wasn't looking at the balance sheet. I'm sure he wasn't looking at the cash flow statement. I'm sure he wasn't looking at different ratios. He was probably just following the Redditors. So why do we even have to care about financials if it's easy to make paper, right? If it's just easy, you just follow what the Redditors are doing. And I have this, yes, it's over there. So this is a passage from this book. And today we're really going to be studying this book. We're going to be going over these four pieces here, but we're going to be taking excerpts from this book. And this was a book that a mentor gave to me, a very successful mentor. He actually has his name on a college somewhere. So you already know how much money that takes, right? So he sent me this book and I studied it. I have it written up, marked up and everything. And it really teaches you how to interpret financial statements because they're not really difficult. Warren Buffett always says you don't need to have a genius IQ. You don't need to have an IQ of 100 to invest in the stock market, right? You probably have 20 points too many, he says, right? You really just need a 6th grade education. So we're going to be talking about ratios and just comparing numbers and all that stuff. But anyway, in this book, he talks about, up here, he goes, Ben Grant's principle of always returning to the financial statements will keep an investor from making huge mistakes. And without huge mistakes, the power of compounding can take over. And in the next slide, we're going to talk about the power of compounding. And I'm sure if you have a session with AB, he's going to talk about it. It's such a powerful tool. And I want to jump down here as to why it matters to do financial analysis and look at these budget sheets. It's especially common during periods of exuberance, hint, hint, wink, wink, what we're going through right now when kids are turning $4,000 into $67,000 without doing any research. That's exuberance, okay? That's not normal. I don't know if you've ever heard of that happening before, but I damn sure haven't. All right, so it's especially common during periods of exuberance or fear that investors depart from the fundamental methods of successful investing. Okay, so it happens a lot. People are departing from it, okay? But a sound understanding of how to read the basic financials should keep investors focused and thereby avoid costly mistakes so that you can get this compound interest, okay? Now, next one, the power of compound interest, all right? Compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world, all right? And on the next slide, I'm going to show you exactly how you can go about doing that and certain stocks that you could buy if you choose to, right? Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just giving certain scenarios and things that have worked for me and for other people. All right, so if we look at the compound interest here, right, or we can see over time, right, from 20 to 21, this person put in $24,000 in total contribution at an 8% annual return. You put in your $24,000 after those next 20 years, you're just compounding interest, snowballing, okay? Until, you know, at the age of retirement, 67,000, you're over at $47,000, right? And that's only with an initial investment of 24,000. So every year you're putting a certain amount up to 24, and then you stop, and then you just let the interest take over. It literally turns into a snowball. And you can see that here, right? In this chart right here, if you start at age 20, $5,000 annual contribution, less than $500 a month, and an 8% annual return. The stock market on average, and we're going to see that next slide, returns 10%. And I say that on average, I'm not saying every year, but on average, and you can see the difference in the total retirement the earlier you start. All right. So the 3 steps on how to use compound interest. Okay. First one is you can buy the S&P 500 index, right? This is, again, Warren Buffett recommended information, not from me, but from the 4th richest man in the world. Okay. If you want to buy it, take it, be my guest. All right. So you buy VOO or SPY. These are both index funds. VOO is, I would recommend over SPY. Why? Because it's half the expense ratio. So it's basically like a fee that they take for providing the ETF for you. So it's a 0.03 expense ratio or expense percent, as opposed to SPY was a 0.06. Why that's important? Because if you compare it to a company like ARK, a lot of people know about ARK and Kathy Woods. They got shirts like the fan favorites, crazy because she put 10% of the fund in Tesla. Okay, not really impressed myself, but whatever. Shout out to her. Glad she's doing well. But that's a 0.5% expense ratio, maybe even 0.54, right? So it costs a whole lot more when you start putting tens, hundreds, and millions of dollars into funds like that. So it's super important to always keep your expenses down, kind of like what AB said about expenses. You got to track those things, right? Next one is to buy a set amount every month, right? It's called dollar cost averaging. Right, so you take your $200 and you just buy VOO, as many shares as you can at that date. Some days, you'll be able to buy more than others, right? You may have a dip in the market like we did recently. You'll be able to buy more than you did the last month when the stocks were up. All right, but buying those every month, you're going to average in at a certain price. Some months are going to be high, some months are going to be lower. All right, and last step, don't deviate from the plan. Just set it and forget it. Okay.
Oh, Will.
Talk to me.
Where do you buy this at? Can you buy this on Robinhood?
Yeah, VOO's on you can buy it on Robinhood, TD Ameritrade, any brokerage account you have, you can buy VOO. VOO, just type it in.
Compound, and it's going to automatically gain interest.
Yeah. So think about it, right? So the idea is that VOO on average is going to go up 10% per year. So that's what that means. Like when you get those compound interest. So let's take an example, right? I put $1,000 into VOO and it goes up 10% in 1 year, right? I now have $1,100, right? Now next year, let's say it goes up 10% again. It's now 10% on $1,100. So that's another, $110, right? So that's the power of compound interest and why you want to keep building that snowball, because 10% on 110,000, 10% on 1,100 is more than 10% on 1,000. So that's why you just keep building that account. And then eventually, based on averages in the stock market average over the past 40 to 50 years, you're going to get a 10% on average return. And like we talked about before with the stock market, there's years where the stock market's down 20, 30%. That's what I'm talking about, averages. All right. But there's also years where the stock market, like last year, talking about the NASDAQ, was up 20, 30%. Okay. So the ebbs and flows average out to a steady 10%. But one stat that is real is that 70% out of the past 30 to 40 years, 70% of the time, at 70% of those years, the S&P 500 has closed in the green or has closed positive. So more times than not, the stock market goes up over a long term. I want to stress that. So if we're looking here, this is just a very simple example, and I think a very realistic example, especially with the people at their age that are on this call. You put an initial investment of $1,000 into VOO. Okay, you make monthly contributions of $200 a month. Okay, $200. I know, especially the ladies, Amber. I know you know. So I was in McDonald's last night. This girl was over here talking about how her nails cost $75, the hair cost $50, the toes cost another $60. I'm like, you're in the heights. Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't see any of that. Like, what do you do? What do you get all dressed up for? Like, no one's looking at anybody in COVID. Like, what are you doing? So I'm silently judging. I'm sorry. It was late in the morning or whatever. But, but you're talking about all these different expenses. So like AB said, it's important to keep track of those things because, $200, like, just don't go out. Don't go to brunch with the girls that weekend, right? Or with the guys, and just like put that in the VOO, right? Again, I'm not a financial advisor, but these are just ideas and things that you can research, and they're not coming from me. They're coming from the 4th richest man in the world, all right? So you put an average interest rate, which is the rate that you get of 10% per year. Again, on average, the stock market is 10%. All right, maybe higher some days, maybe lower. And this is what happens to your money over a 20-year period. You're $1,000, and then the 200 you're putting in turns into 144,000 if you continue to invest at that constant rate. All right, and that's just setting and forgetting. It's not rocket science. That's not you waking up, panic, looking at your screen because your stocks are down, and now you're thinking, and now you're biting your nails because your day's shot because you done lost 40% on your NEO options or whatever. Right? This is just consistent time and shrewd efforts that have worked. All right. Oh, and also there's this compound interest calculator. I'm just going to go ahead and, that's not what I do. I'm just going to go ahead and share that in the chat really quickly for anyone who is interested. Okay. So here, chat. Juliet flipped, raised her hand. Amber. No. Question. You're muted. You're muted, Amber.
If you click on participants next to her name, unmute her.
Okay. Participants. God, I feel like a grandma. All right, Juliet, I'm gonna let you talk. Hey, Juliet, can you hear us?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Hey.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys for doing this. Thank you, Amber, for this as well. I actually have a question. So you're saying with the compound interest, so if you open up one of the two things that you was talking about, so you're saying if you put $1,000 and the $200, would that go into, that's like a share, a stock, a ETF or something, right?
Yeah, I'll pull it up right now for you, actually. I'm glad you asked the question. So VOO is just a stock. It's an ETF. It's an ETF that tracks the S&P 500. Okay. So I'll pull it up right here. So it's like, let's say do you have a stock market account or a brokerage account already?
I do. And I was asking because I opened up an M1 Finance, but I did it I did a Roth IRA. Is that the same thing as what you're talking about?
You can buy it through a Roth IRA, right? A Roth IRA, and AB is here, so he can definitely chime in on this too. But the Roth IRA, you can only contribute a certain amount per year. But yeah, you can put 200 in and use that account to buy the VOO or to buy this stock. You can't. It's only
6,000.
Yep, exactly, only 6,000. So you're capped at how much, but it's still you're still going to grow that money tax free.
Now, Will, let's say you.
So it's the same.
Sorry, say that again, Juliet.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Amber. I'm sorry.
Let's say you're buying this through Webull, right? And right now the VOO is $349, so you would have to buy fractional shares if you're putting in $200 a month.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I think one of the things that people get kind of caught up on is that, like, oh, I have to get a whole share. I need to get the whole thing. I need a whole pie. Let me buy cheap stocks so I can get more of them. Like that doesn't really matter. $200 in this stock is $200. It doesn't matter if it's half of it or a piece of it. I think it's important for people to realize, like, you know, at times it's better to have a small piece of a massive organization than maybe a whole piece of a small organization, if that makes sense. So, you know, as long as you're buying a piece and pieces and pieces and pieces, then it should continue to grow. Does that make sense, Amber?
Yes, it does.
All right, cool. All right, cool. Yeah. Juliet, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Sorta.
Yes. So the compound that you're talking about, that's not a you said it's somewhat like the Roth IRA. So what is the actual compound then? Like, what is that, another name for savings? Yeah,
so compound interest is a term that how do I say this? It's just what happens to your money compounds. The interest on your money compounds. So let's say you were to invest in VOO today, right? Let's say you bought one share, okay? Let's say, so for $350. Now VOO goes up 10% next year, all right? So you do let's keep round numbers, 350 right, times 1.10, right? It goes up 10%. At the end of your year, after your one share, your VOO is now worth $385. But then again, Juliet, remember we talked about stocks go up on average 10% a year. So then the next year, you're going to get another 10%. Okay, so 10% on 385. So sorry, 10% on 350 was 30. What was it? $35, right? $35 that you made in your first year. Now next year you're getting another 10%, but now your 10% is on 385. So what's 10% of 385? Times 1.10. Okay, now your stock is worth $432, $423, right? But you didn't just make $35 like last year. You made more money because your stock was worth more. Okay,
Right.
and that is does that make sense?
Yes, I understand. Yes, I got you. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes. So the more that you put into it, right, the more it bubbles and bubbles, right? 10%. You start. Well, I put in 1,000 this year. I made 10% on 1,000. That's $100. Now next year I put in another 1,000. So now instead of 10% on 1,000, I have 10% on 2,000, right? And now I have 10% on 3,000 and 4,000 and 5,000. That's why the wealthy can sit back and maybe make only 5% on a trade, but 5% on $1 million is enough to live off of, right? So you know, to stack that up, let's see, 2, right, times 0.05%, right? That's $500,000. No, is that 5 million? Yeah, 5 million, right? So, I mean 100,000. That's getting a little big. But let's say we start at $1 million, for instance, right? Right, $50,000. So, you know, people are looking for 20%, double their money, all that stuff. When you're wealthy, you got $1 million, you get a 5% gain in the stock market, which is half the average amount. I mean, you're living on $50,000. So that's the power of bubbling that up and saving that and putting it into an ETF that compounds like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Yeah, of course. Thank you. If you have any questions, please let me know. Yeah, thank you, Julie. I appreciate you. All right. So, yes. So at first, when I learned about compound too, it was difficult for me. I didn't really understand like how does it work? But essentially, it's just a snowball effect. I start putting more and more into it, and then it just keeps growing. It keeps growing, and it keeps growing. All right. So, and that probably, I'll have to maybe put a compound interest calculator or something that really explains it better later. But anyway, so here's the agenda for today. We're going to jump into actual balance sheets, right? So we're going to talk about half of the balance sheet, which is the cash flow, short-term investments, accounts receivable, inventory, and total current assets. And when you're looking at a company, it's broken up in 3 things. There's an income statement. That's where, like AB says, where the money resides. That's where you're going to see all the sales. You're going to see the profits. You're going to see all the expenses. That's where you're going to see the income. Balance sheet. That is where you see, that's the heart and soul. That's the person's body, right? That's the company's body. Are they in a lot of debt, right? Do they have a lot of flab? Are they a lean company, or are they just taking on debt like crazy, right? Are they in good standing with the creditors? Those are things we're going to see in the balance sheet. And the last but not least, cash flow statement, right? What are they spending that cash on? Did they buy a new company this year? Did they try to write off another company? What are they doing in spending that cash flow? Or are they investing it right back into the company? What are they doing with that cash flow? And this, I don't have the book next to me, but this is the book I would recommend everyone to get. It's like $15 on Amazon if you're really interested in buying individual companies, which, you know, most people are not. But if you are, then go ahead and grab this. So cash and short-term investments. All right. So first things first, you know, what do you all notice? And I'm not sure if the chat's working, but I guess for time purposes, I'll just keep it moving. This is Nike, and this is you can find this information on wallstreetjournal.com. So I'll pop out here. I really like the Dr. Iannu's Simply Wall Street. That was a new one for me. I haven't used that, but that's cool and it's free. But I type in WSJ.com. Okay. Looks like he bought 25 billion of his own stock. He's been sitting on a lot of cash. It's one thing I look at. I like to see water. Talk about it. Yeah.
I wanted to just jump in. I don't know if you could bring Ken up to the stage. Ken is one of my brothers on Clubhouse. We every morning we are on Clubhouse just dropping jewels about stocks and stuff. But this is a part, a lot of people that's here are from Clubhouse. They tune in with us every morning. So what Will is about to do, what Ken would call looking under the hood. So what Will's about to do is what Ken will call looking under the hood. So he just, when we're on Clubhouse, you're not able to see how he's looking under the hood. And I don't think Ken necessarily use WHJ. I think he uses another one. But we're looking under the hood, as Ken will call it.
Yeah, I'd love to pull Ken up if he's here. I'm not sure, but let me do this first.
He is here.
I definitely will. Oh, perfect. Let me pull him up in a little bit. So WSJ, I come here, right, and I'll type in any company. The reason I like WSJ.com is because it's free. You can also use NASDAQ.com too. But I pull it up here and I head to the financials, and then I go to the balance sheet. All right, the balance sheet. Okay, and then you can see all the past 5 years. You can even see quarterly. I think it's quarterly if you want to look more in depth. But again, we're looking at investing long term, right? So when I look at investing long term, I want to see 5, 10 years of information. If I'm going to give you my money and consistently do that in large chunks of it, I want to make sure that I'm believing in this company. All right. So let me pull. ABC. Ken Harrell. That's it. That's him.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. All
Ken
right.
Blank. Wait, let me see.
Ken Blanks. Yes. Let me see. Allowed to talk. I think he may be up now. Hey, Ken, can you hear us?
Loud and clear. Hey.
What's going on, brother? Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Wouldn't miss it for the world.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, excellent. Yes, and Ken, also, if you want to chime in on something too and add some value, please be my guest and just unmute and go for it. So, first things first, we're talking about cash and short-term investments. Okay, what do you notice? XYZ. So with Nike, we see that we're seeing a continual increase in cash and short-term investments. All right. So what are short-term investments? Essentially, they're marketable securities or securities that can be sold within 1 year. It says typically 5 years, but it's typically 1 year. Okay, so what that would include is like, say, treasury bonds a company may be invested in, or any sort of stocks or other sort of securities that they keep their money in other than cash, right? But as we can see on our next page in this book, in the interpretation of financial statements, cash assets, cash equivalents, CDs, marketable securities are all considered cash, and there doesn't really need to be any distinction between them. All right. But here is the important part about paying attention to cash. Yes, it's good that a company's cash holdings may be increasing, but we really want to look for companies who have cash holdings who are exceptionally large in relationship to the market price. So what does that mean, right? Let's say, and this rarely happens, right? But let's say you have a company or a stock that is trading at $10 a share, and you want to say, okay, it seems cheap, but I really want to see, what is this company worth? Like, what sort of assets does this company have? Is it even worth $10 a share? Maybe just because the market is telling me it's $10 a share doesn't mean it actually is. But let's say I go and actually start looking at its cash holdings, and I see that it actually has cash of $12 per share. Okay, so you would take the cash, the amount of cash that it holds, divided by the amount of total outstanding shares, and you're going to get a number of how much cash per share. Okay, so that seems like almost like a no-brainer. If the stock is worth $10 according to the market, but it on its balance sheet has cash of $12 per share, I'm sitting on a $2 per share cushion, right? So I'm essentially buying a free stock. I'm getting $2 of free money because of that distinction. So it's important to compare the cash, how much cash it has, compared to its the market price, right? And a lot of times, especially during Corona and things of that nature, stocks were all over the place. So you had some really cheap companies that may have had a favorable cash position. They're sitting on a lot of cash, and you could have potentially got them for good value. So always be on the search, right? Always be digging for companies that may be holding a lot of cash, especially in relation to the share price. So next one, we'll do some comparisons. Again, not sure if the chat is working, but how does the cash and short-term investments of Adidas compare to Nike? As you can see, Nike has blown them out of the water. And as you can see, short-term investments, only 439 million compared to the actual cash of 8 billion. And the same thing here with Adidas.
And so really quick, I just want you to slow down really quickly. All right.
Sorry, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Just so this is where, you know, we're looking under the hood, and I don't want anyone to get lost in terms of the cash and short-term investments. And
yes.
So you made that quick comparison in terms of the $8,787,000,000 is how much cash and short-term investments they have. That's how much they worth, right? That's how much equity they have.
So that's just cash they have. Equity can be in a lot of.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you said, okay, cash and short-term investment growth. You was like, that's really great. Can you just speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So if we're looking here, right, and we're looking at Nike and its cash and short-term investments over the past 5 years, you know, they started with 5 billion in 2016, and now we go to 2020. They have close to double the amount of cash on hand that they have. Okay, so you know, it's important to look at companies that, one, have a lot of cash, because then they have more of a cushion, essentially. Okay, if push comes to shove and maybe the economy, like right now, we're in an environment where you can borrow money for very cheap and borrow lots of it. I know a lot of people. I just had my bank reach out to me, hey, borrow some money from us. I'm like, what? No, I'm good. But in environments where that tightens up, and money becomes scarce, it's great to have a company that has a lot of cash, because then they probably won't go bankrupt, right? When you're looking at these companies and balance sheets, you're looking for safety, right? Like Ken talked about, right? You're looking under the hood to make sure this is a safe company that I can put my money in. I don't want to put my money in a company that, you know, doesn't have the cushion to be able to absorb any sort of financial distress. Right now, as we saw over the past couple of months, a lot of retail spaces went out of business. Why? They had a lot of debt. They didn't have a lot of cash, and they had to pay for things that they just couldn't pay for. Right? So you have JCPenney going out of business. You have other big, large retailers going out of business. Other companies going out of business left and right. Why? Because they just don't got it. They don't have it. Okay. Does that help, Amber?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Okay, next one. It's accounts receivable. Okay. And these are Nike's accounts receivable, and we're going to talk exactly what that is. Accounts receivable is essentially the credit that is owed to the person. It's like an IOU. So how many IOUs does Nike have, right? So about 2.7 billion. So if I go to the, it's my cousin. So if I go to the store and I buy a shirt on credit, technically I haven't really paid that money back. I haven't really paid. If I went to Macy's and used credit, technically I haven't really paid Macy's. It's on credit, right? It's once I actually pay that off, right? Does it actually turn into a cash sale? So you have to be aware when you're looking at a company, and we're going to talk about this actually in the next slide. You want to be wary of companies that may have a lot of accounts receivable compared to actual sales, right? You have a lot of people that owe you money. Are you sure all of those people are going to be able to actually pay you off or pay you back? Okay. Do you have enough sales to cover even if all those people didn't pay you back? Okay. So, for instance, according to the interpretation of financial statements, right, as in the case of inventories, receivables should be studied in relation to annual sales where available. Okay. Why is that important? If the receivables seem unusually large in proportion to sales, meaning a lot of people owe you money based on your sales, they were like, yo, I got you. And you were like, okay, yeah, cool. You can pay me later. Now you can pay me later. Now you can pay me later. Now you can pay me later. You can pay me later. If receivable seems unusually large in proportion to actual sales, then there is some indication that an unduly liberal credit policy has been pursued. And the more or less serious losses are likely to be sustained from bad accounts. So let's say a situation that comes up, right? I have a company. I'm selling goods. I take more IOUs than actual cash sales, right? Then we have a problem going on. Let's say something happens where the economy goes bad, all right? And now that IOU, oh, sorry, dude, I actually can't pay you off. Oh, man, okay, shoot, all right, so what about you? Oh, sorry, dude, I can't pay you too. Dang. What about you? Oh, sorry, I can't pay you too. Dang. So I just sold my inventory out to you, but all these IOUs are now canceling on me, right? So that's why it's important to pay attention to the sales compared to the accounts receivable. And you want that to be as large as possible. You want your sales to be a lot larger than your accounts receivable. All right, so we have some actual comparisons here. All right, this is called accounts receivable turnover. So what you're doing is you're taking, just like they said here, you're taking the annual sales and you're comparing it to the accounts receivable. All right, what you're looking for is you want your sales to be a lot larger than your accounts receivable. Okay, and the beautiful thing is Nike over here, 14-1. This is one of the things that kind of blew me away. Nike is that, wow, compared to its competitors, right? Under Armour 8-1 and even Adidas 7-1. Right, so they were able to sell a lot more and not really rely too much on credit and accounts receivable. Now, if this number is like 1-1 or even 2-1 or 5-1, that gets a little scary, right? Just in case, what happens if credit starts to dry up? Are those people going to pay you back? It seems like your sister ratio is so low, you're kind of relying on those people to pay you back for sales. And if you're relying on that, that can get a little scary as opposed to just a straight cash transaction. All right. So next one, accounts receivable comparison. I guess we went over this. As you can see, Under Armour a lot less than Nike, but you can see here again, it's important to compare it to actual sales and come up with that ratio. And this is actually how you compare different companies in the same industry, same sector, right? Yeah. Nike sector, Nike blowing them out of the water. All right, that's actually a really good sign for me. Okay. So next one, inventory. Okay. What is inventory? So here's Nike's inventory over the years, consistently grown. Okay. But again, I'll say, what is inventory? Essentially just goods are produced that you have ready in inventory. Let's say all of you all own your own Foot Locker. All of the shoes in the back is your inventory. Pretty simple. That has a value to it, right? Nike's total inventory is 7.3 billion. Okay, so they have 7.3 billion of physical goods that they have to sell. Okay, now why is that important? Okay, so the inventory figure should be studied in relation to various factors. Okay, one of them, just like accounts receivable, is going to be sales. So the chief criterion is the turnover, defined as the annual sales divided by the inventory. Well, again, I want to see a really high turnover. I want my stuff moving. I want high sales compared to actually what I have. Okay, again, I want high sales compared to what I have. All right, and this is another, again, you guys should definitely get this book, page 36. There's something called a true turnover ratio. If you really want to get technical, then you would compare the cost of goods sold, the cost of sales to inventory. That can get a little more scrutinous, but you can work with annual sales. So if we do that with Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, we compare their sales to their inventory, and that is the turnover ratio. Okay, this is super important, especially when it comes to retail stocks, because that's what they do. They sell stuff, especially clothes and things of that nature. You want a high turnover, the opposite of like school, right? You work at a school, you don't want a high turnover. You don't want kids coming in and out, or you don't want teachers coming in and out. But with clothes and goods, you want a high turnover. You want that thing out. You don't want a huge inventory, right? You want a lean inventory, but high sales. Okay, and you can actually see, it was interesting, actually, Adidas, not by much, 0.7, but Adidas actually had the highest inventory turnout of the 5. And I was actually shocked that, Nike's was actually 5 and Under Armour's right there. So they're both all coming at the same level in terms of turning out inventory.
And by turnover, you mean like just selling the inventory? Selling the inventory. Yep. So for instance, let's say that so if they had you want this sales number to be a lot higher than the inventory number. Okay. Because then that shows you that, hey, listen, they're selling a lot compared to what they actually have. All right. It gets scary if you have an inventory of 7 billion and your sales are 7 billion. Okay, because then you're not really turning over product as much. Okay, you're not selling as much as someone who sold 37 billion.
compared to the 7 billion in inventory. So the goal is to always have sales be a lot larger than your inventory. I would say, imagine and think of it like, I would say working at Foot Locker. All right. Imagine, you have, let's say 7 billion in the back, right? And then would you rather have 7 billion in inventory and 7 billion in sales, or would you rather have 40 billion in sales and still have 7 billion in inventory, right? You always want your sales to be a lot higher than what you have in the back. Okay. You want it to be as lean. You want your inventory to be as lean as possible so you can get the highest reward, right? Because inventory costs money. You got to store it. You're making stuff, right? Ideally, you would really not even want a backlog, right? You'd want to be able to produce and ship without having to even store anything, because storing costs money, it costs time, it costs a lot of things. So I hope that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So next one, how does the inventory of Under Armour and compared to Nike? So we have accounts receivable. Oh, sorry, this is I made a mistake here, but we can do a quick look at Nike. Okay, and we go to inventory here, and then again, if we go to Wall Street Journal, WSJ.com, we can do. Let's see, what are we doing? Under Armour, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. That's not what I was looking for.
We might have to just send this to the group because of time restraints.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, I'm on my last slide. All right, so inventory here. See, it's a lot lower than Nike's. All right, so let me finish up. The last 2 slides are current assets. Okay, current assets we're going to talk about a little bit. So those are all assets that can be conveniently or expected to be sold in 1 year. Okay, and typically when you look at current assets, you want to compare them to current liabilities. Okay, and that's going to let you know, hey, can this company meet its short-term expectations in the upcoming year? Is it going to have to borrow money? Is it nice and plush? Is it comfortable? Or can it go through any whirlwinds? Right? You want a company that has a nice cushion of current assets compared to current liabilities. We're going to talk more about current liabilities next week. So here are just the things that consist of current assets: the cash we talked about, the receivables, accounts receivables we talked about, boom, and the inventory that we talked about. All of these things go into current assets, things that can potentially be sold in 1 year. All right, and I think this is close to my last slide, but you can just compare the current assets of Under Armour to Nike. Of course, you want to see a constant trend, an uptrend of assets, right? It's just like a person. You want to hang out with the person who has more and more assets. They're buying more houses. They're buying more stock. The value of their assets and stock are going up, right? And you have this here also with Under Armour. So that concludes the going under the hood for week 1. Thank you all for joining us. Again, if you want to join or learn some more information, join our free stock market investing community. Here are just some examples of some of the things we're talking about on BAN. If it's talking about a stock that one of us are invested in, or some news that's going on with the Fed, or even some news on earnings reports, please go ahead and jump in the conversation. It's a community of people learning from each other, and it's free, and then we really love to have you. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that in the chat. And that's it for me, Amber.
Well, thanks.
You are welcome.
Definitely, if you all want to continue to be in the know, in addition to checking in with our moderators on Clubhouse, as well, and checking in with us every day during the week, coming in on Saturday, we also definitely have, or will also definitely have the BAN app where you can just join, ask questions and so forth, and just a community of stocks enthusiasts who just engage in conversations as it relates to the stocks. Ken, did you want to share any insight before I move on to Lawrence?
Hey, I'm just happy to be a fly on the wall. I thought that was an excellent presentation. I just came out just to show some support and some love. I'm not even at my laptop to share screens and do any of that right now. But this is awesome. I mean, I liked how it broke down like the inventory type stuff. I think that there's a couple of intriguing things to consider, because for companies that produce widgets, I mean, that's an easy thing to count that I think a lot of people overlook. You know, so I thought that was a very interesting perspective. And I will try my best to chime in next week to, you know, see what happens next.
Love to have you, brother. Thank you.
I signed up for Ken's class. I tell Ken I want to be like him when I grow up. I love the way he breaks down. Like he's able to like take the information and like break it down to like layman's, I guess, terms or what have you. So I signed up for his 3-week boot camp and so forth. I'm excited.
Check it out.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. And then Lawrence, you still there, friend?
Yeah, what's going on, guys? How you doing?
Yay! Yo, I got 3 of my brothers. Yeah, I'm so excited. I got. All right, Lawrence, let's go. You're gonna take us home.
All right, for sure. Well, I keep mine. Got my stuff pulled up already. Share my screen. So we're gonna get right into it. So a little bit about me, 30 seconds. My name is Lawrence Eggleston. My company name is Black Wall Street Originals, where I teach people fundamental analysis, technical analysis, as well as short-term, mid-term, and long-term investing strategies, as well as crypto investing as well. I started trading when I was 17, back in 2017, currently 21, located here in Atlanta. And I host weekly webinars, classes, and a multitude of different events. So here's a topic today that we're talking about, just basic technical analysis. So why choosing your spots matters, especially in a stock market like this. You know, choosing your spots is just so important because you want to make sure that it's always going to be, well, I could have got in here, I could have sold here, but you want to make sure, you know, most people, when they first start off, they get kind of scared of technical analysis. They're like, I don't know if I want to use it, but it's really within your best nature, instead of just buying a company, just saying, hey, I'm gonna just buy it just because we know overall over the long term that the market starts to move higher. So choosing your spots really, really, really matters. And entries and exits are important, whether you're trading options, which is calls and puts, or whether you're just buying regular shares and holding for the long term. So you have a couple different metrics like RSI. RSI is basically the relative strength index, and it measures between 0 to 100. And it also measures whether a stock is overbought or oversold. So typically when a stock has an RSI of over 70, it's considered overbought. Under 30 is considered oversold. So this is one of the main metrics. Now the MACD, you use what is called the 12, 26, and 9 standard MACD. And it stands for 2 lines crossing and converging. So a lot of times with MACD, it measures momentum and direction. So it can allow you to kind of see the rate of, you know, people selling starting to slow. The history of the charts is important. So you want to be able to take a look at the bigger time frames to get an idea of how the stock has overall trended or how the market is overall trended. Price action is something that I'm really big on, trading price, because the indicators that we use are based upon price. So without price, there is no indicators. So if you can really learn to start trading price more efficiently and using the indicators as a second confirmation, the more the better. Setting levels is important. So you want to set your support and resistance and your supply and demand zone levels. So you can kind of get an idea where maybe a stock may start to move lower, where a stock may start to move higher. So you really want to know how to exactly take advantage of this and why it all matters. It ties back into choosing your spots. You just want to choose your spots wisely and be able to get in and out of positions at a timely manner. And so that's the end of my slideshow. So now I'm going to go to what is a platform called TradingView. So TradingView is a platform that I like to use to do my technical analysis, as well as Thinkorswim, TD Ameritrade Thinkorswim. But for me, I like to really have a nice, open, clear, light background. I think psychologically wise, your brain maybe might perform better with a light background. So I've kind of fell in love with TradingView a lot more than Thinkorswim, simply because of it being light colored. And so Thinkorswim is still a great platform that I use as well, but I favor a little bit more to using TradingView. So one of the things,
Lawrence, hold on really quickly. It looks like Vanessa has a question.
Okay.
Do you mind taking her question real quick?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Will, can you I don't know if you made me host again.
I will make you host, but I see Vanessa's hand.
You already made her, you took her.
Yeah, she should be able to talk.
Hi, Vanessa.
I'm sorry, that was a mistake. I apologize. But
okay.
I am fully tuned in, learning from young folks. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Oh, yours better.
My apologies. Long as you can continue.
All right, perfect. So, all right. So one of the things you have a couple indexes like QQQ, which is the NASDAQ, DIA, which is the Dow, and the S&P 500, which is SPY. So QQQ, this is where most of our tech stocks are located. So your Apples. And so right now, when I talk about looking at history, so you can look at like the 1 week chart. I always tell people if you want to start on the 1 week chart or the daily chart, which is considered the daily chart, you can use this over the past year. So it kind of show you the trend over the past year. And so for me, you know, I may use this 1 year strategy, this 1 year chart, and I like to use it to kind of set my levels. So where I set my levels is where price maybe struggled to break through before and got rejected, and then where price may start to break down a little bit lower. So for me, what I like to look at is, you know, when setting these levels, typically whether the stock price breaks above the line or breaks below the line, I would either, you know, if I'm playing options, you know, I would maybe either look to take a put option if it broke below this line, or if price broke above, I would maybe look at taking a call option. And a call option will allow me to make money off this asset price increasing. A put option will allow me to make money off this asset price decreasing. So for me right here, you would use this tool. It's called the trend line tool. You would be able to draw a line in a strategy like this. So you could be able to do this and you'll be able to plot your points. So that's how I was actually able to get this on here like that. And so for me, one of the things that I look at as well is the MACD line. So when I had that on my PowerPoint in my presentation, it was important to me because when you see the MACD lines converge downward, it causes a shift in direction. And so if you take a look all the way back here, back in November 3rd, when the election, you got a chance to see that the MACD line started converging upwards and the overall market started to move from a technical standpoint higher. So for me, one of the things as well that I like to look out for is I like to look out, like I said, when price breaks above or below, and specifically this week, you got an opportunity to see that the NASDAQ index QQQ actually hit this 1133, 1124 low and just bounced straight back off of it. And that's what this wick is, this candle right here, this wick. The stock price wasn't down too long on February 23rd, and it came and it popped right back up. So that let me know what happens is that think about all the people who maybe missed the opportunity to enter this particular trade and have been waiting even since here, like, okay, when price maybe gets back to one of these levels, they're looking to buy. So typically sometimes, you know, buyers kind of step in and there's already orders that are placed there because, you know, it's a bunch of institutions, a bunch of few retail traders who missed getting in right here. So I think it's important for people to be able to set these levels to see, you know, where price kind of struggled to break out. And if you take a look back even here at the end of November, you see as price broke back out, it got rejected at this point. And then where did price ultimately return to before it started to bounce back? It returned right to this support level at 300, 229, 300, and price continued to shift upwards. So technical analysis is really key, something that you want to use, like I said, when you're getting in and out of a position. Because, for example, let's say, and I'm going to go to a NASDAQ stock, which is Tesla. So for all the people who are looking to purchase Tesla, you know, back here, this was a time where Tesla was kind of just trading sideways and stagnant. Now, it wasn't until price broke below here and then it proceeded, you take a look, it went from this 760 on Monday and price went straight here to about 715. And, you know, we kind of just sat there for a little bit. Then ultimately we moved downward even further. So what I always tell people is you want to watch out for when stocks have incredible run-ups like Tesla did, because what happens is they don't have a lot of areas where they struggle to break through. AKA that would be your resistance points. And so if you take a look back all the way here, you know, price started to break out higher and it just kept breaking out. And we had these wide areas, for example, right here, where you did not have too much time of price struggling. And so price can move upward in a very fast range, but it can move even lower and a lot faster. So because I was looking at QQQ, I pulled up Tesla because Tesla belongs to the NASDAQ index. So whatever company that you're trading, you want to look at the index and then go take a look at the technical chart. And so if you see this chart primarily looks just as similar as QQQ, the direction of it and how it started to move in a downward trend. You see the MACD crossing and converging. And then, for example, right here, this is the amount more people are selling than actually buying right now. So when you see this, you start to see more people buying than selling. And now you're seeing a whole bunch of sellers in the industry. So on this particular stock. So you just want to be really, really, really careful because the stock price is moving downwards now. And potentially if Tesla's price was to break this 620, 630 line, price could potentially go all the way back to like 480, 490 area. So that's something that you want to be careful of when stocks have parabolic rises. So when people ask, well, this stock has been rising, I want to look to get in, maybe, you know, getting in at the top is not the best. And this technical analysis can help guide you as far as where you want to get in and where you want to get out. So another stock that belongs to the NASDAQ is Apple. Same exact pattern that you saw with QQQ and Tesla. So QQQ mirrors Apple directly and heavily. So if you take a look here, one of the things that you could see is that the price started to break down, its price started to break lower. And then if you started to see now, it's sitting right at that plotted point. And once price broke through here, this 126 area, that was that level of support and was a previous area of resistance. So price broke above this resistance line, came back down here, and then price started to proceed to break higher. Then you got an opportunity to see price got rejected at this level, came all the way back down here, bounced off, essentially creating what is called a double bottom pattern. So what is a double bottom pattern? Double bottom pattern is a technical analysis charting pattern that describes a change in trend and momentum reversal from prior leading price action. So the double bottom pattern can sometimes look like a W. And one of the things that you want to take a look at, it always follows a major or minor downtrend in any particular security and signals the reversal and the beginning of a potential uptrend. And so this is what a double bottom would typically look like. And so typically after a double bottom, one bottom here, two bottom here, you get an opportunity to see that price starts to move higher. And so once price broke out above this level, see how price just gapped up and we hit an all-time high for Apple stock price. And then price came back down below, broke below this level, and now has retraced all the way here. But look at that same candle. That was the same candle you saw in Tesla. That was that same candle that you saw in QQQ on February 23rd. So this is why it's important to follow the indexes that your stock is particularly in, because it's going to be important for you to get a gauge and for you to look at it. Right now, on the daily time frame, it's still a lot of bearish momentum. And so you get a chance to see that a huge amount of sellers in. So this sell-off that we're seeing in the markets right now, this is why I'm still overall bearish on the market. I potentially have a case where if I look back at QQQ that follows and tracks the Apple and Tesla, I potentially see QQQ breaking all the way to at least this 300 level again. If price can break down below here, it's bounced a couple of times. You see 1, 2, 3. So it hasn't been able to break below 311. But once it breaks below 311, it could potentially retrace all the way here. You still see a heavy amount of selling volume. Look at, and these bars right here is all sellers, a huge amount of selling volume and pressure on the markets. So for me, I'm still short-term bearish on the market. I think we could potentially continue to fall. I think that we're experiencing some short-term turbulence that in a sense would bring us, long-term to, really a higher rate. Now, the next thing you want to do is if you want to even look back further, just look here. Let's look at the 5-year chart. So if you get an opportunity to see here, you see price got rejected at this point in October of 2018. The market went on a downward spiral due to Donald Trump and his Twitter fingers, Jerome Powell and him being a do-boy and just wanted to raise interest rates. That's a whole separate conversation. But in a nutshell, the market was down for 3 months. Then as we started to recover, look what happened. Price got rejected here at that same resistance point. And when price got rejected at that same resistance point, one of the things that I would say is you got a chance to see it come right back down, potentially broke back over, came right back down. And once price finally broke this level, it broke this level and started moving back up higher. And so I was immediately, just consistently happy to see how price broke back higher and, went to this new all-time high. Then we got an opportunity to see that price, once it broke below back in March, we got an opportunity to see that it came all the way back to these levels. So once price broke through this key level here, this 191, price proceeded to go lower. Then once it broke back above this in April, early April, price continued to move. So the 5-year charts, which is the weeklies, is just as important because you can really be able to track and see. So it's really important for you to take a look at it. And I do have some more stuff to show you guys, just a couple more things. Show you Boeing. Yep. So this will be my last thing, and I can show you this on the 5-year chart. And this will be my last part. So Boeing back in 2016, you had an opportunity to see Boeing at around, $112 a share, $120 a share. You see this incredible rise. So this is what I always tell people. Boeing literally did not have any kind of area of resistance for this entire run all the way to 240. So if we get an opportunity to take a look at things from a technical standpoint and a technical correction, if you see, one of the things that happened is price continued to break higher. And as price continued to break higher, we got an opportunity to see now breaking through here. Once it broke this level, then the stock kind of ranged here for a little bit, and then price broke a little bit and then proceeded to go higher. Now, the catalyst here was the plane crash that brought the stock back down here. But even if you see after the plane crash just happened and the company was in turmoil, you just got an opportunity to see that it just kind of just traded sideways. Just traded sideways consistently over and over again. So I just tell people to really, you want to pay attention and look at this. And you got an opportunity to see back in February of 2020, once price broke this through this 320 level, that's when it just got really nasty. So take a look at how fast from August 2017 to January 2018. Take a look, that's about 6 months, about 5-6 months. How many days did it take for Boeing to get to this price level? It took Boeing about a week. So about 7 days to get to, once it broke here, to just even get back here. Then if we take a look, how long did it take Boeing to get down? It only took Boeing a month to get back to a level that it hadn't been at. And it took literally just 2 years to even get to this point, but it took a month. So from a technical standpoint, once we hit this level, we immediately bounce back. Immediately.
It makes sense why you were bullish on Boeing.
Yep. And this is where I picked up Boeing. This was easy pickings. I picked up Boeing right here. I picked up all my shares. I'm full disclosure, I own 500 shares in Boeing. I picked up majority of my shares at 115 and 130. And the reason why was purely from a technical standpoint. I knew that they would have no problem getting back to 240 eventually. The problem is now they need a catalyst that can push them a little bit higher to get back to 320. But once Boeing breaks 240, I'm just gonna tell you guys, this stock could potentially go back to 320 in a very fast fashion once it gets over. So if you take a look at it, old, and one of the last lessons, let me go back to the 5-year chart so it'll look a little clearer. There we go. Once old, this is old resistance becomes new support. So old resistance is here. New support, and support got smashed through. And now we talk about new support, and then now we have old resistance right here. You have to break through this resistance point. And the problem is Boeing has not been able to break through that yet. So when we're taking a look here, this would be what I'm looking at and looking for. Purely from a technical standpoint, this is why Boeing fell so dramatically. Because this is why it's important to go take a look back at history. The stock came right back into the demand level back from 2016. It wiped out 2 years of gains in a month, but it bounced right off of this. So for me, once it gets back over 240, this is why I'm so bullish on Boeing stock, is because once it gets back over 240 as time progresses, it's going to come back to 320, and it may happen a lot faster than maybe what we saw here. Even if it doesn't, this will kind of give you a wide range. But the whole lesson in this is, as stocks run up as fast, just trust me, it can come down 10 times. It'll turn on you very quickly. So the stocks that I showed you, like Tesla, it could turn on people very quickly, and it's already starting to turn. So people don't be careful. Don't let Tesla go below 620. It'll be back at 400 pretty quick if buyers don't try to step in. And so, technical analysis can kind of be your guide for your entries and your exits. And this is just a basic, idea of technical analysis. You got your MACD indicator crossing up. You got your RSI to say, hey, is the stock overbought or oversold? I didn't want to take up too much time. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys a gauge of what are some of the things that we're looking at and why we're looking at it in this aspect and in this way, and how for me as an investor, the gentleman did a great job with the fundamental analysis, but you take that and you couple it with this. I mean, you're just literally, you'll be unstoppable, because not only will you have the effective qualitative research to say, hey, what's going on with this company? Is this company profitable? What are their investments? What are their catalysts? What are the underlying fundamentals that can drive this company forward? Plus, you enter at a great price and you were able to kind of track that and see. I mean, it's just having both works hand in hand. One is not better than the other. They go hand in hand. You need both of them at 100% capacity, not 50-50. You need 100% technicals, 100% fundamentals. And so, looking at this, the fundamental aspect of why Boeing stock hasn't been able to break 240 is because, hey, their balance sheet is looking still weak. They haven't been able to, fulfill a lot of their debt. Yes, they've gotten the plane approved, but it's still a long ways to go as far as a company road to recovery. So this could be a nice long-term play from a fundamental aspect as they clean things up, and from a technical aspect. So I appreciate Amber. I appreciate all you guys tuning in. And thank you so much.
Thank you too. Oh my gosh. I know, I think something is up with my chat box, because usually everyone that's in the audience are very, very active and engaged, but I'm going to just throw some sound effects for all of you all that has contributed to today's webinar. Today's webinar was so dope. I want to say it was like one of the best ones that we've had. I just want to give everyone a shout out for that. I'm going to I typically delay the process in terms of sending out the link and so forth, because I like to do some edits and so forth. That's usually like a lot of talking in between. But this was like a clean, crisp webinar, and everybody here like dropped some jewels that I think will literally help them go to the next level in terms of their personal finances, thanks to AB, the fundamentals, thanks to Will. Just thinking about, why you want to invest in the stocks and the psychology of stocks, thanks to Dr. Ianu, and then the tech check, thanks to Lawrence. And so I just want to just thank all of you all for joining us today. I will definitely, for those of you all that's here, and please look out for an email. I will also have the contact information of everyone that was on this panel. If you want to reach out to them, follow them on Instagram. If you all want to put your Instagrams link in the chat box, go ahead and do so now. Please make sure that you're following each of these individuals. And I think that today's webinar is worth just going back and studying, right? Like we talked about, during this time, don't quit, right? Like go back and study. And there was a lot of information presented to you to where you can literally just run it back and just study it. So I just want to give you all a great, I don't know, I wish I could drop an infinite amount of bumps, but thank you all so much. Thank you. I just want to thank my attendees for joining us this week, every week, and so forth. And we'll be back at it again.
So just make sure you look out for that email, social media. I'm always promoting on our stage, and we're always doing a follow-up on Saturdays. Do y'all have any closing words that you want to share before we check out? Panelists, all right.
Just thank you. There's a lot of knowledge spilled here, man. I appreciate everybody.
It's enough to get them like really going, like a lot.
Yeah, it's free 99 too. Get
free
started,
99. Like I'm telling you, I paid $1.5 a week, a month for some I mean, it wasn't nonsense. I got the basics, but I'm literally gonna go back and like study everything that was shared. So thank you all so much. And without further ado, I'll see you all next week. Have a good one.
See y'all.
Good night. Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Thank you for coming.
Awesome class.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you.